And hello, everyone. I'm David DeGuzman. Welcome inside the NBC4 Digital Center for the latest edition of NBC4 Sports Extra. The Olympics continuing on from Milan Cortina. And on the show, we have an Olympic broadcaster, proud to call him a friend and a fellow Syracuse Orange. His name is Bill Spaulding. You might have heard him during the first weekend of the Olympics, right before the opening ceremony. He was actually calling day one of team figure skating while his colleague Terry Gannon was calling the opening ceremony. He is the main voice for speed skating at the Milan Cortina Games, but this is actually his sixth Olympic assignment. He's called all sorts of sport from judo to track and field at the Summer Games. He's been calling speed skating for a bit, though. This will be his second Winter Olympics calling that sport alongside Joey Cheek. He's also been a play-by-play announcer for the New Jersey Devils. He's done all sorts of sports over the years, and proud to have him. In this conversation, we'll talk about a lot of things, talk about some names to be watching as the speed skating competition unfolds. We'll also touch upon his time calling figure skating. Actually, when I was editing this piece, had a bit of a debate on whether or not we wanted to include that part of the interview because the figure skating that he would have called had already happened. But I thought it was some great insight as to what it was like to been working with, obviously, Johnny Weir and Tara Lapinski, sitting next to those two, because they've called several events leading up to the Olympics, and also kind of the differences between calling speed skating versus calling figure skating, and how to work with your analysts who are next to you, like a Joey Cheek or like Johnny and Tara, and just trying to figure out when's the right time to talk and when's the right time to kind of pull back and lay out. So we kind of get into that. And of course, we talk about the logistics of calling an Olympics. This will actually be his first Olympics on site. Previously, in his other Olympic assignments, he's called it remotely from Stamford, Connecticut. So this will be his first time calling an Olympics at the actual host city. So that'll be a lot of fun. So a lot to get to, a lot to talk about here now. My conversation with Bill Spaulding. And just as a note, we taped this before the Olympic Games began and before he traveled over to Italy. All right, joined now by Bill Spaulding, no stranger to calling an Olympics. Bill, I think I remember correctly, was your first in Rio? Not like in Rio, but you were calling for the Rio Olympics.
Yeah. So
and I think you called Kosovo's first gold in judo?
Yeah, in judo. So I was on the swing team in 2016, which was just you move from sport to sport. So I did judo, shooting, modern pentathlon,
wild,
and a whole bunch of other stuff that Olympics. That was my my baptism by every sport possible. So this is number 6 for me now.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on getting to call your 6th Olympics. And Bill, you've called so many different sports throughout the years. Also, disclaimer, both Bill and I are Syracuse grads, go Orange. So some great broadcasting pride that we're able. Actually, I feel like this is the first time you and I are talking in this kind of format, like for and on air. I don't remember the last time I've interviewed you for something quite like this. So this is exciting for both of us personally. Yeah. Let's talk about the speed skating. Obviously, the big name going into these games, Jordan Stoltz. He did compete in the Beijing Olympics. He was a little young then, but certainly some great experience he got from those Beijing games. But I don't know, man. Like, what do you think of how big his name is going to be after these games? Is this a guy that we're going to be talking about as a household name coming out of the Milan Cortina Games?
I mean, I think you can make a realistic case that he can be like the Michael Phelps of the Winter Olympics because he's still only 21. He is such an all-arounder that he contends in so many different events, and he should be good for a long time. So multiple Olympics, like you see him getting a chance to make a run at all the Winter Olympic medal records. I mean, he truly is a once-in-a-generation athlete in speed skating. I mean, there hasn't been anyone like him since at least Eric Heiden, and Eric Heiden skated at a time when there were a lot of all-arounders. So while it was incredibly impressive that he won gold medals from 500 up through 10,000, a lot of the same people skated all those events. Now we're in an era where you generally get super specialized sprinters. You've got people who are 500-meter specialists, people who are 1,000-meter specialists, the 1,500-meter middle distance guys, and then the long distance guys. And somehow Jordan is able to contend across so many of those different speeds. I mean, he is the world champion in the 500, but also has the best last lap of the 1500. That defies logic. It's not something that someone should be able to do. You add in the fact that he's put the mass start into his program this year, and he's got the best sprint finish of anyone in that field. I mean, there is a realistic world where he leaves this Olympics with 4 gold medals. I would be shocked if he doesn't leave this Olympics with at least 1 or 2 gold medals and 3 or 4 medals overall. He's just that good. Even a lot of the other speed skaters talk about that. One of Canada's best speed skaters, Laurent Dubray, was interviewed this season. He said, basically when he's out there, you can't beat him. You're racing for second. And that's kind of what it's been like. As long as he is healthy, if he's anywhere near his best, there are maybe 1 to 2 people in any event that have a chance to stay with him, and that's it.
And what's great about a guy like Jordan Stoltz, who's having multiple events in his repertoire, it's a name that you get to say throughout an Olympics. How excited are you about telling his story throughout the course of these games?
You're right. We do get to kind of follow him through a 10 or 11 day stretch. And if he keeps winning, he starts with his best event, the event where he's the world record holder in the 1,000. As he continues to win, then I just expect the anticipation around his races to build. And he's got a great story. I mean, not only is he this super dominant athlete, I think he's relatable. He started skating on a pond in his backyard after he saw Apollo Ono win a bunch of medals in the Vancouver Olympics. He's a kid who grew up in kind of rural Wisconsin, hunting, fishing, didn't watch a whole lot of television. And his parents, they sacrificed a ton for him. His mom homeschooled him. His dad worked the overnight shift as a sheriff's deputy so that he could drive him to his training sessions during the course of the day. So, you get that family buy-in, the family commitment, and, a really wholesome story that has produced a 21-year-old who can do things that no other speed skater in a generation has been able to do.
Yeah. Also, with him racing on Valentine's Day, I'm expecting some Valentine's Day puns, but not too corny. But you've got maybe like something
we'll see. We'll see. That's the 500, that is the one. If you're looking at one event that is the smallest margin for error for him, at least in the individual races, the 500, the 1,000, and the 15. It would be the 500 just because since it's such a short race, the gaps are so small, even like the simplest little mistake can cost you 1/10 of a second. And those are races that are usually decided by thousandths of a second. Sure. So keep your eye on that one. If he wins the 1,000, then wins the 500, we could be talking about something really special because that's the one he really has to get through, where he's still the favorite, but not necessarily the massive favorite that he will be in the 1,000 and the 1,500.
I think equally as appealing, a young lady by Erin Jackson, who I remember Super Bowl Sunday, you called her race in the morning right before NBC's pregame coverage to that game. And it was one of those moments that you knew it was history in the making for sure. And one of those moments that was kind of etched in Winter Olympic history. Of course, it makes the montage, and that's kind of the goal for every athlete and for every broadcaster, make that end of games montage. She's going into this one, though, knowing that it's going to be probably tougher to defend that title. Tell me about Erin Jackson and how she's approaching these games.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on in your analysis that this will be a tough title to defend, and it's not because of how Erin's skating. It's that as dominant as Jordan Stoltz is, I think the surest gold medal at the entire Olympics in speed skating is the women's 500 and Femke Cox. She has been dominant since 2023, winning all the world championships this season in the World Cup, which is their regular season. She's won all 7 500 meters she's raced. She's broken the world record. She wins by wide margins. It's going to take a mistake from her and something really special to beat her. That being said, Erin has a realistic shot at the podium in the 500 and in the 1,000. We've seen starting at Olympic trials and now through the World Cup, the best 1,000 meter skating of Erin Jackson's career. She in the past was really only a 500 meter skater, but she's added that extra lap and a quarter to her repertoire here. So that gives her 2 chances at a medal. The biggest question mark for Erin since that last Olympics has been her health. She's dealt with back injuries. This year, she injured her hamstring in December, so she had to kind of sit out for a couple of weeks before Olympic trials, came back and skated great at Olympic trials. You just hope that the training that she missed in December doesn't come back to bite her in February. But one thing my analyst Joey Cheek always says, and I would say from watching Erin, it's totally true. She might be the best game day, big game player there is. Like if the pressure's on in a big moment, she skates her best. So obviously the stage at the Olympics won't be too big for her. And she certainly could find her way onto the podium once, maybe even twice.
And her best friend, Brittany Bowe, also coming back to the Olympics. Her final, I believe this is her 4th. Just a great story overall, and someone who's obviously made an impact on the U.S. speed skating team. How excited are you to kind of see this final Olympic chapter of her career unfold?
Yeah, I mean, she has been a key member of this speed skating team for more than a decade at this point. I think she's been a little bit unlucky in her Olympic career because she's had some injuries and lead ups to Olympics that have maybe led to her not having quite the Olympic success that the rest of her resume would show you to expect her to have. She's won 5 world championships. She's the world record holder in the 1,000, but has 2 bronze medals in her Olympic career. At 37, at the end of her career, she's right in the thick of things. And I think a bronze medal would be a huge accomplishment for her. She's finished 4th, 5th, or 6th in all but one race on the World Cup this year. She did get on the podium one time, but for the most part, she's been just off, but fractions of a second behind. So if she can execute in the highest moments, she definitely has a chance to get on the podium. It's been fun to see her get out of her shell a little bit more. She's such a fierce competitor, but to see her step away from that a bit this year. And I think a big part of that has been her relationship with women's hockey player Hillary Knight. They've been very open about that. And this is both of their last Olympics. They've had a lot of fun together in the run up. And I've seen a lot more personality out of Brittany in the run up to this games as well. And I think going out happy as a competitor, doing what she loves, but knowing it's the right time as well.
That's a great Hallmark story waiting to happen right before Valentine's Day, right around that holiday. Let's talk about, as a broadcaster, how you approach these games. You've called all sorts of sports, and I mean, we talked about judo earlier. You've also called your share of hockey. You've called, I mean, in my Syracuse days, you've called lacrosse. You've called basketball. Of course, you've called football. Speed skating's interesting because if you watch the event as a whole, you're trying to build up this drama into these last 3 or 4 pairings where ideally you have your top contenders in those final pairs. What's different about calling a speed skating event, maybe in comparison to, you've called track and field before for the Olympics? What's the, I guess, the mindset as you're trying to build up that kind of drama? Because it is kind of unique.
Yeah, I would say there are a lot of similarities to track and field in terms of like time splits and things like that being important. In terms of it just being 2x2. So say most events you'll have 14 or 15 pairs. And like you said, the top 6 athletes are in the last 3 pairs. So that's where we expect the majority of the medals to come from. Though at the Olympics, we've seen some flyers where somebody early on skates a great time and ends up winning a medal. But I think those early pairs, that's where, speaking with my analyst Joey and talking throughout those pairs, you can kind of set up what people should be looking for. What's the strategy? What kind of time splits do you have your eye on? Things like that. And then, the other thing for speed skating is the way you call it varies a lot based on what event it is. In the 500 meters, I mean, they're done in less than 40 seconds. You don't really have a whole lot of time to get into stories and that kind of stuff. But in a 5,000 or 10,000 meters, plenty of time to develop stories, bio information, really focus on splits and that kind of stuff. So you can kind of be really nerdy and granular in the distance events. And then you got to be a little more big picture, high energy in the sprint events and do your storytelling in the in-between moments.
You have a great analyst right by you, Joey Cheek, and I'm assuming NBC has something prepared for the 20th anniversary of his Olympic triumph in Torino. What's it been like to work with him? And tell me about just finding that groove. And you guys were able to do that so well for the Beijing Games. But when you're able to narrate what's going on and married to the analysis he's able to give on each skater.
Yeah, well, I think one thing that I really appreciate is NBC has had us call so many events in the last few years. Like we've called World Championships, World Cups. I think the two of us have been together on every speed skating show NBC's had since 2021. So first off, familiarity. The more you work with somebody, the more you know their cadence, the more comfortable you are with them. And I kind of now at this point, first off, I've called enough speed skating and watched enough listening to him that I have an idea, the splits and things like that he's going to be looking for already. And then on top of that, like I kind of know where he wants to go with things, which is helpful from doing so much together. You have that trust that he trusts me to lead him in a certain way. And then I trust that if I take him a certain way, he's going to follow it that way. We've gotten to know each other so well and I've gotten so into speed skating doing this the last 5 years that now like there'll be a regular World Cup going on and I'm shooting him text messages like, whoa, did you see that 24-second lap split that this guy skated in this race, and we're texting back and forth about that kind of stuff. So, it's great. We are able to bounce things off each other, and excited to celebrate his 20th anniversary in Italy as well. I think Joey, frankly, is one of the best analysts out there across any sport in terms of how he's able to take a sport that is niche and break it down in a way that folks who only watch once every 4 years can understand it, but also do it in a way that doesn't isolate the folks who watch a lot of speed skating.
It's great when you have a guy who's so passionate right next to you and who's able to really convey that passion through his analysis. Obviously, you're not there yet, but we're kind of breaking time-space continuum here. When a lot of us watch this, you will already be at the games. Can you give us a sense of what your day-to-day is going to be like? And obviously, it's a bit different because you get to be at site for these games.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of folks are a little bit envious of the schedule for speed skating. We have an incredible schedule because each day is just one event, one gender. So, an event tip to tail is about an hour and a half, and usually like mid-afternoon to early evening. So I think most mornings I'll do some last minute prep. Maybe I'll go over to the rink because some skaters who are not skating that day will be practicing. And that's when you get the chance to talk to folks a bit and get some extra background information. Then, we'll call the event middle of the afternoon after we've had production meetings and things in the lead up. And then, oftentimes we hang around for an hour or two afterwards to make sure that if there's any thing that needs to be sent over to the primetime feed, we've been able to make sure that that's delivered. The great thing about all the resources thrown into these events by NBC is we get the ability to, after we call something live on USA or NBC, we can also get some enhanced replays. There's some great tools where we can show some things for the primetime audience that maybe we couldn't show live. And that's how we'll really make that primetime viewing experience worthwhile, even if you've watched it live, to come back and watch it again, because we have the tools to be able to do some really cool stuff like that and highlight the best moments and really hopefully be able to give you some real data behind like why Jordan Stolz, for example, won this race by a second. What did he do that was so much better than everybody else? And so I'm excited about that kind of stuff. And then, I'm a huge Olympics nerd. I always have been. So I'm going to try to catch as many events as I can when I'm not working. So even if it's like after I wrap up a day of speed skating, if there's an event over at figure skating, if there's a hockey game at the rink next door, I'm going to hop over to things like that. I know I've already got my first off day. USA Canada women's hockey's playing that night. So I know I'm going to head over and go to that game for sure. So I'm going to just try and make the most of being in that Olympic bubble.
I love nerding out with you because we can both nerd out about the Olympics and also the TV side of things. And it's funny because the primetime enhancements, it used to be kind of a little bit of a secret back before we were doing the splits of, live in the afternoon and then doing the primetime. But I feel like NBC's really embraced talking about, hey, if you've watched this in the afternoon, watch it again and we'll show you some interesting things. I think that's going to be really cool to get that extra that maybe you weren't able to see as it was happening, unfolding live. Couple more for you. I want to go back to figure skating for a little bit. Yep. What's it like working with Tara and Johnny? Because very few now it's Terry Gannon and now you. I mean, who've been able to say that they've worked with those two. They're a fun group to watch.
They're awesome. Yeah.
And when we talk about passionate analysts, you can't find anyone more passionate than those two about figure skating. What's that been like? And how have you been preparing? I know you've been calling the European Championships in the 4 continents as well for that one night of team figure skating.
Yeah, I mean, first off, they're a joy to work with. They're so much fun. They've welcomed me in. I love even just listening to them because they have a ball, their banter back and forth, even when we're in commercial breaks or things like that. Like they are what you see on television. That's what they're like with each other off the air as well. It's such a joy to watch figure skating events with them because they are so knowledgeable, but they also do it in such a fun way. In terms of preparing, I mean, first off, I've stressed out over my wardrobe a little bit because obviously you gotta match the vibe a little bit. I'm not going to be able to pull off what Tara and Johnny can do, but want to make sure I fit beside them there that day that I'm with them in Milan. But I think we're all set there.
I mean, you're in Milan, you can just pick something up maybe.
I know that's true. If worse comes to worse, I can make a last minute run to a store somewhere near there. Otherwise, like in terms of preparing, we've called a lot this year together, which again helps just build that rapport. So we've called a number of, in the fall, the regular season events are called Grand Prix events. We called a few of those together. You mentioned the European and Four Continents Championships. So at this point, we've probably been on air together for 50 or 60 hours this year, which is a lot of good experience. And then, otherwise, like, I'm preparing the same way I would prepare for a European or Four Continents in terms of like athlete bios. I got all my information I need on each skater we're going to see. The NBC research team is great help there as well. They send so much additional supplemental research. And then, like I said, to me, the big focus of the team event is going to be the big picture. Like, okay, this person, like the United States won dance and Japan only finished 7th. So how does that affect the score, or vice versa? If Japan, who is the world champions in pairs, does well there, and the Americans, that's their event they're maybe the weakest in, how does that affect the overall? And that's what I want to make sure that we're keeping in mind for everybody, is putting, the small skate you see in front of you in the big picture of how that affects the overall team event.
Do you find the balance of when you're able to tell the story? Because obviously you leave the logistics of skating and all the small analytics to Tara and Johnny. They're able to talk about the actual skating, but are you able to find that balance either during a routine or the before and the after, when they're in the kiss and cry? How not hard, because you've done this for a while, but how do you find that balance when you're broadcasting?
Well, and I would say figure skating is a little bit of a different animal too, because even Tara and Johnny don't talk that much during the routine, because you don't want to talk over the whole performance and the music and things like that all adds into the performance. So you got to really pick your spots. And for me, usually that's the 15 or 20 seconds between when the PA announcer announces the skater coming out on the ice and when the music hits, and then the time after the replays before the scores come in. That's where I try to slide in the most important information, but it really makes me focus on what's the most important information, what needs to be conveyed here, how can I do it in the most efficient way, because there is only so much time. And sometimes that's harder than, say, in the 10,000 meters of speed skating, where I'll have 13 minutes to talk about this guy. You don't have to be so judicious with what you're saying here. It forces you to focus and be sharper with your words and choosier about what you want to talk about. But that's, again, that's come with experience of calling more and more figure skating as well. And in the team event, I think maybe a little less on individual bios and a little more on how the team event is playing out, in terms of how I have to focus on the limited amount of words and time that you have to get the information across.
Bill, wrapping things up here, I remember talking about the Olympics with you back in our college days at Syracuse. And it's kind of crazy how time moves forward, and here you are, able to call on site in Olympics. Again, your 6th Olympics. What drives you the most in calling these special events, these events that really only come every 2 years, and you're getting a very unique audience that a lot of them don't tune into sports on a day-to-day basis?
I mean, it's the athletes. Like, these athletes are amazing, and so many of them are in sports where you don't get rich doing it, and you work 4 years in relative obscurity for this one opportunity. Like, the amount of pressure that is on these athletes during these couple of weeks is just so condensed and focused on, because everything they've worked for comes to this point. I do it for the joy as well. Like when you see the thrill of victory and the people achieving their dreams. Like, we had a couple moments in Olympic trials where you had people that were fringe on whether they were going to make the team or not, and seeing them make the team and the emotions overwhelm them. Like, that's why you do it, is to see that and see someone's hard work pay off, and then, as someone growing up, a huge fan of the Olympics, like, how could I not get excited to, deliver my best when all these athletes are going to be delivering their best? It's my favorite. I'd say every 4 years, but every 2 years, my favorite 2 weeks every 2 years when the Olympics rolls around, and I'm just super lucky to be a part of it. And I think this year, all of us at NBC feel super lucky because we have the deepest U.S. team across the board. It's not just speed skating. I mean, this is the best American team, at least in 26 years or 24 years since the 2002 games, maybe the deepest American team ever going to a Winter Olympics. So it should be a whole lot of fun for all of us, getting to call a whole lot of major moments for Team USA as well.
Well, we are really excited. Bill Spaulding, mainly the voice of speed skating, doing a bit of a cameo for figure skating. His 6th Olympics, we're very excited. And Bill, I can't wait to see what calls make the montage. Bill Spaulding, appreciate the time, man. Thanks as always.
Thank you, DeGuzman. Appreciate it.
All right, our thanks to Bill Spaulding for the time. We wish him the best of luck in his future calls with the Olympics at Milan Cortina, and of course in his future endeavors. I'm sure this will not be his last Olympic assignment, and we'll see which one of his calls will make that closing montage after the closing ceremony. Remember, you can watch the Milan Cortina 2026 Winter Olympics on NBC4 as well as on Peacock. That'll do it for this edition of NBC4 Sports Extra. I'm David DeGuzman. Until next time, have a great one.
Thanks for watching. For more NBC4, download the NBC4 streaming app. You'll get free 24/7 local programming streamed straight to your living room. Just search NBC4 Columbus on your Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Roku, or Samsung device.